The garden's really growing fast now, so let's walk around and take a look at it. The potatoes grew really tall when the weather was cool and rainy, and then after it got hot, they fell over and they don't look so hot right now. Just behind the corn are some spider flowers that I'm letting grow that came up volunteer. My grandmother called them spider flowers, but I think their name is actually cleome. Now that it's hot, the sweet potato vines are starting to grow. Eventually, the vines will cover the entire area in front of the bales and beyond. Until then, I'll keep the weeds at bay with some grass clippings. Here's a look at the second bale, and it's doing very well too. It might actually be growing a little bit better than the first bale. Right in front of the bale are the herbs in the grow bags, and the basil and the cilantro are trying to go to seed. You can snip the ends off, but eventually you just have to let them go, like I'm doing this cilantro. I'll be letting this go to seed, and then I'll save the seeds and plant them later. I also did a video on how to save basil seeds, so if you want to see that video, I'll put a link down below. Having some herbs handy when you need them is pretty nice. There's one of the volunteer sunflowers that I let grow, and right next to it is a eggplant that's already produced one fruit. Then on this group of poles we have the skunk beans, and they're starting to try to climb already. Those roly-polies, when the weather is cool and cloudy, they'll actually do damage to small seedlings. I have 3 cucumbers growing there, but I might take one of those out. The single carrot with all of the flowers is really looking pretty. Those would be worth growing just for the flowers. And these seed heads will eventually dry out and form seeds, and I'll be saving some of those. This one carrot will probably produce thousands of seeds. Then on the next group of poles we have some long beans, and also some Malabar spinach. Those will really start to climb in the next few weeks. There's 2 different types of pole beans in this cage, and as you can see, they're already to the top of the 5-foot cage and beyond in both cages. This year I'm growing 7 different types of pole beans. The tomatoes are looking pretty good, and we have quite a few peppers that are ready to harvest, and I'll be harvesting those very soon. That's one of those jobs that I keep putting off. Then the melons in this cage are just starting to climb. Sometimes with melons you have to help them out by propping the vine up against the cage, but eventually those tendrils will grab hold and then they'll start to climb. You can see a couple that have already grabbed hold here. In these stackable pots, I have the peppers that I've been calling black cherry. Some of those are just starting to darken up a little bit. Then you can see this hollow log with the petunias has quite a few flowers on it already. The tomatoes are getting bushy, but it's been so hot that we just haven't had as many set on as you would expect. Most larger type of tomatoes don't set on nearly as well once the weather gets into the mid-90s. Some won't set on at all when it gets that hot. We have a few smaller tomatoes, and we'll probably get a few ripe ones around the 4th of July, maybe a little bit before on some types. Overall, most of the garden is looking pretty good, and the peppers have better months to come. Usually our best month for peppers is the month of August, and we aren't even close to that. This is the Pippin's Golden Honey, and right next to it is the Oda, and it has quite a few peppers that are ready to pick. And as I said, I'm a little bit behind on the pepper harvesting, so I'll get on that soon. We have some carrots back there that look pretty good just behind the tomato plants. This is the Audrey's Love tomato, and it's got some nice looking tomatoes on it that keep growing and keep setting on. We've been thinning the carrots a little bit every once in a while and eating those thinnings. Here's a look at some of those carrot thinnings that I picked recently, and some of those little ones can be very tasty. And I also pulled some onions because I wanted to make room for some late beans that I wanted to plant. And on the end of the carrots, something's eating the tops on some of them, so when I figure that out, I'll let you know. This is a Mary's Cherry dwarf tomato, and it's got a few tomatoes on it, but not a whole lot. Just beyond that, we have some more volunteer sunflowers that I'm letting grow. I think it's going to be really pretty when those bloom. There's another eggplant, and then we have some beets. And beyond the beets are some zinnias that are just now starting to bloom. And this red plant is an amaranth. That came up volunteer, so I just let it grow. Here's a look at some of these zinnias. Some of these have little red streaks in them. I've been working on these for a few years. And as you can see, some of them have insect damage, but I'll get that figured out eventually. The way I'm going to do it this year is I'm going to keep the zinnias that look like the ones I want to save seeds from, and any that aren't, I'm going to pull. Back in the corner next to the shed, those are all volunteer sunflowers that I'm going to let grow. Mother Nature planted them there, so I figured I'd let them grow and see what happens. This is the fennel. It's about 6 feet tall now, and it has some caterpillars on it. Those are caterpillars from the black swallowtail butterfly, and they'll turn into one of those really beautiful butterflies in a few weeks. And there's the banana. It's probably getting close to 10 feet tall maybe. And it's still growing, of course. Here's some of the Purple Flash Project peppers, and they're starting to look pretty. Each one of them is just a little bit different than the next. Right next to those, I have a 10-gallon grow bag with some otopinos in it. There's 4 of those. And then we have some more project peppers. Continuing with the grow bags, this is the Banana Toes tomato plant, and it's got quite a few tomatoes on it. Just beyond it are the F4 Black Pearl Project peppers, both the pendant type and the upright type. The 6 10-gallon grow bags with the potatoes are doing very well. They finally grew tall enough where the tops just fell over. They got so tall, so I just left them the way they are. I added a tiny bit of sulfur to those when I planted them to lower the pH just a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out. Over here in these grow bags we have the Black Pearl Project peppers and the Oda Cross peppers. It's going to be interesting to see how all of those do. The Black Pearl Project peppers are F5s. The Oda Cross is an F2. In this grow bag I have a shishito that's got so many peppers on it, I think it's self-pruning. These little shriveled up ripe ones, I think the plant is just kind of rejecting because it has too many peppers to support. Here's a look at the Shimo Furry tomato plant. It's loaded with tomatoes. I'll be glad when these start to get ripe. It's got lots of tomatoes on it and still got lots of blooms. This one grows as a determinant. Another variegated tomato is Walter's Fancy. This is one I've never grown before, and as you can see it has very large peppers on it. No tomatoes on the Pico's Pride variegated tomato yet. The Rose of Sharon bush is looking really good this year, and a pair of cardinals has a nest in it right now. Later on, the hummingbirds really like these flowers a lot. That's about it for our garden. Be sure to let us know how your garden's doing. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.